Acharja, it's now my great pleasure to welcome Congressman Brendan Boyle to McGee campus for the second time. While this visit is in a virtual space, Congressman Boyle attended the honorary graduation of his good friend Congressman Richie Neal at McGee campus in April 2019 as part of a congressional delegation which also included Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. Given Congressman Boyle's Donegal heritage and his paternal link with Glencolumkill in particular, we're delighted to have him join us to offer this congressional address.
Well, it's wonderful to be with you. I thank you, Professor Malachi O'Neill. And also, as you just mentioned, I want to thank Ulster University McGee campus for hosting me again, albeit in a very different format than when I was there just 2 years ago in the springtime of 2019. Much has happened in that period of time, of course, and the world has changed utterly. However, fortunately, we have found a way to still be able to communicate with one another. That trip 2 years ago, I think, was significant. And in many ways, the work that this conference is doing is a continuation of furthering those bonds of connection between Ireland and the United States. So first, to give me or to give you a little bit more background about me, as a professor referenced a little bit of it, it's not surprising, given that I have the name Brendan Boyle, that I am of Irish descent, and proudly so. My father was born and raised in Glencolumkill, a town literally named after St. Columkill, who, of course, we just recently celebrated or commemorated this past December, the 1,500th anniversary of St. Columkill. On my mother's side, my roots are also in the Northwest, to counties Sligo and Mayo. Both of my mother's parents were from Eastkey, County Sligo, literally overlooking the bay and Donegal off in the distance. So certainly the area around your campus is quite familiar to me, and the roads from Dublin to get to the Northwest, I think I've probably driven on all of them, whether intentionally or getting lost and finding my way somehow to get ultimately to Glencolumkill. Now, I've been asked to reflect upon the relationship between the United States and Ireland and where it stands, particularly now in a post Brexit world. Let me offer a few observations. The first is, I think it is safe to say that relations at the nation state level have never been stronger between the United States and Ireland. Certainly, if you were in Washington, D.C. every March, you see what remarkable access the Republic of Ireland and its leaders get in Washington, D.C. And I say remarkable, it would be remarkable for any country. But when we consider that the Republic of Ireland is about 5 million people and all of the island as a whole is a little under 7 million, it is even more extraordinary. And it is quite literally the envy of other small countries and large as well. In fact, more than a few ambassadors from other countries sitting in my DC office have outright admitted the degree and the extent to which they envy the sort of access that Ireland enjoys in the United States. That obviously will only continue in the wake of Brexit. There would be no interruption for that. But to the extent that the relationship has changed, I would say that it becomes more important to the United States. We can see why the relationship with the United States has always been important to the Irish side. It was first important economically, particularly the investments that began to be made in the 1980s from US multinationals. And then, of course, it was important politically. Back 100 years ago, as the preparations were underway to launch the rebellion in 1916 and the subsequent War of Independence, certainly support from America, not at the government level, but at the people level, was crucial. Indeed, De Valera spent a good deal of his time during that war in the United States, campaigning and giving speeches in front of sold out crowds from Fenway Park to Yankee Stadium to the campus of Notre Dame. So that relationship has always been there and has always been important to the Irish side. And one other point on this to bring it to the present day, of course, is from the 1990s forward, once President Clinton signaled that the United States government at the executive level, at the presidential level, would now play an active role in forging the Irish peace process, which of course culminated in the Good Friday Agreement in 1998, but did not end there, as we have seen successive presidential administrations of both parties continue that active American role. And of course, for many decades going well before the 1990s, there was always strong bipartisan support for the Irish peace process among members of both parties in Congress. So that's the Irish side and why the relationship with the US has always been important. But I mentioned moments ago that now, in the wake of Brexit, the relationship grows in importance to the United States. With the UK removing itself from the larger EU table, Ireland is now the only English speaking country sitting around that table. It is, I would argue, the country that most shares our values. Now, I am a bit biased when it comes to this topic, but as I point out to my constituents, the overwhelming majority of whom are not of Irish descent, our relationship with Ireland greatly benefits all Americans, economically, and now, especially post Brexit, politically. That will only continue to grow. As we Americans lose having the British at that table, we have already seen instances recently when it was a call to Dublin to essentially advance or at least represent what is the US position uh, to our wider European audience. We will see that as the discussion and the conversation around tech issues continue to grow, whether it's the digital taxation issue or all of the privacy and security issues. And we will also see it when it comes to security. Even though Ireland is, of course, officially a neutral country, it still fulfills many obligations, whether it's in UN peacekeeping, or the relationship that it has with NATO. So that is something that I think you will see only grow over time throughout the decade of the 20s. We are also, both the United States and Ireland, living in a world that I call is in a democracy recession. So having Ireland alongside the United States to stand up and speak for democracy, for our shared values, is, I think, critical and only grows in importance. Now, let me talk a little bit about the Irish peace process and where things stand now. It was exactly 5 years ago this month that the Brexit vote took place. I have said many times, I certainly respect the right of the British public to decide whether or not they want to be a member of the European Union. That's a decision for them, not for me or any of us outside the UK. However, what I have said and what the Speaker of the House has said, and what a number of us in Congress and both parties have said, and what now the American president has also reiterated, is that it is crucial that in withdrawing itself from the European Union, the UK honors all of its existing legal obligations. I think we made that point quite emphatically 2 years ago when we physically walked the border between Derry and Donegal to show our commitment that there would never again be a hard border constructed on the island of Ireland. Certainly, that is not the only way in which the Good Friday Agreement could be violated, but it is the most obvious one and perhaps would do the most damage to both the letter and especially the spirit of the agreement. as we move forward now, obviously the issues of the protocol have taken on, in some ways, almost a life of their own. Let's not forget, though, the reason why we're here. The protocol was negotiated between the UK government and the European Union. It was signed up to by both parties. And the United States is pretty clear in the position that while it's important, certainly, to be flexible and practical, there is no future without the protocol. That is the best way to ensure we do not retreat to the bad old days of a hard border in Ireland. I also want to take a moment and just talk about what I see as the critical role that your conference plays in this whole realm of Irish studies. You know, growing up as a first generation American with a father born and raised in Ireland who came to America as a 19-year-old, and with two grandparents who only lived a block away in our neighborhood in Philadelphia, and also came as immigrants from immigrants from Ireland and immigrants to America in their late 20s. I was very familiar with Irish culture. I didn't have to read about it; I lived it. But for me, having the local press, local newspapers like the Irish Echo, occasionally catching something that was on RTE, though, on some delay, because these were certainly the pre-internet days, indeed pre-cable. That was an important part of inculcating in me a connection with the modern day Ireland. It also helped being actively in touch with so many first cousins in Donegal and Mayo and Sligo. Um, I think the role that Irish studies plays, particularly for diaspora whose roots go further back, I think it is a crucial role to ensure that the understanding of Americans and Canadians, Australians, or any people around the world who find Irish studies fascinating and worthy of their time, what you find is not just an exploration and a study of the past of Ireland, but also a bringing up to date of the country that exists today. A truly remarkable jewel on the world stage. When one stops and reflects all that modern Ireland has achieved, whether it's economically or politically or culturally, it is truly one of the great success stories in the history of the modern world. And so, having the ability to engage in Irish studies at Notre Dame, my alma mater, or Villanova here local to me, or any of the universities around the world that have such a department, or at least a program, I think that is just plays such a key and really vital role in ensuring that the people to people understanding and exchange is both modern and constantly being refreshed. Finally, I want to say how proud I am to have roots in the Northwest. I will probably start a few arguments by saying this, but I would be hard pressed to name more beautiful locales anywhere in the world than the rugged beauty that exists in the Northwest of Ireland. However, with that rugged beauty comes a certain feeling sometimes of being disconnected with whether it's Dublin or other parts of the island. One of the big personal reasons why I felt so strongly about the border issue was not just because of my commitment to Ireland or the peace process, though they're both strong. It was also recognizing that any sort of reconstruction of a border would only further that feeling of alienation and being cut off in the Northwest. So as I go to work on Capitol Hill and deal with the many pressing issues that we have here in the United States, and certainly people around that is, they are always broadcast to people around the world. You're certainly familiar of them. I am also mindful to make sure that any pocket of any society that is feeling disconnected gets special attention. We have that here in the United States, in my home state of Pennsylvania. There are pockets of Pennsylvania that feel, and these typically are pockets farther away from, say, a vibrant metro area like Philadelphia, pockets that feel like they are being left behind economically, that they are not getting sufficient investment. The Northwest, I know, has at times felt that same way. It is important for all of us in our societies, whether it's the United States or whether it's Ireland or any country around the world, to be especially tuned in to the feelings and the needs and concerns of those sorts of areas. That feeling of alienation can end up manifesting itself in unhealthy ways. I'm glad that that has not happened, as far as I know, in the Northwest of Ireland, but it has happened here in the United States. And it has led to some unhealthy consequences for the larger society. So I'm very excited to be supportive in any way I can to Ulster University and the McGee campus, to Derry, Donegal, the entire Northwest, because I think one of the great challenges we have for all of us in the Western world as we move forward into the 21st or deeper into the 21st century is to ensure that we reunite our societies internally. And that is something that we share a strong desire for on both sides of the Atlantic. So for all of you who are furthering Irish studies, I thank you for what you're doing. I think that it is important now more than ever. And I'm very excited about playing what I hope is a role in continuing and furthering the strengthening of the US Ireland relationship. I thank all of you, and I look forward to the next time I can be with all of you in person.